Hi folks, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to photograph your artwork yourself and to edit it using Photoshop. So the result of this should be a really professional looking photograph of your work that you can do at home without too much equipment. You might even be able to do some of these techniques using Photoshop Lightroom or some other apps that you can find free online if you don't have access to Photoshop. But I'll get you the general idea of what you'll need as far as taking photos. I took this photo of my painting. The first thing you got to know is you got to photograph your artwork outdoors. You need bright sunlight, no clouds blocking the sun. If you photograph your artwork indoors, you're going to have light that's either cool or warm, and that's going to be really hard to adjust in Photoshop. The whole point of this is something that you should be able to do in about 15 minutes. Once you get used to it, you could probably process each image in just a minute or two. So take your photos in direct, bright sunlight. You want that sun hitting it straight on as much as possible, so it's not going to make any weird shadows unless you want to show off the texture of your artwork. Then you might move it around, maybe prop it up against the wall, angle it on the floor or rock or a brick or something to get the kind of shadows you want it to have. Then you're going to want to walk around the painting and choose an angle to photograph it so your shadow isn't laying on top of it, blocking any of it, because that's going to be really hard to take out. And you also want to make sure that it's not too reflective from the angle that you're shooting it at. So, for example, oil paints or certain gloss media that you might use with acrylic can be really shiny. So you don't want to pick an angle where that doesn't look too shiny because those bright points, those kind of reflective spots are going to be really hard to take out as well. So a good photograph will be a really great starting point to make this really nice and easy for you. Once you've gotten your photograph, and I just use my phone to take a great photograph. It does a great job. I have a high-end camera, but I don't find that I need to use it for this unless you really need to blow up your artwork to really large sizes. Otherwise, most phones these days should be sufficient to get a decent photograph. I would just say 5 megapixels or greater camera would be enough. So once you've taken your shot, you need to import your images into your computer and then open them up into Photoshop. So to open up, I already have mine open here, but normally you would just hit File, Open, and you can browse for your photograph that you want to work with. And then just hit Open when you have selected it. Like I said, I've already got mine in here. And as you can see, there's a few problems with it. It's kind of trapezoidal in shape, right? I didn't manage to shoot it straight on because that was the angle that I got that made it the least reflective. The colors may be a little subdued. It's not as intense as I'd like it to be. It's just due to the camera or the lighting that I had. So I'll have to adjust the lighting. The cropping's not great, right? We've got some of the street, the asphalt for my driveway in there. I don't want that. I want to just focus on the painting. So I also need to rotate it. So a few things we have to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I just want to be able to look at my painting straight on. So I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to go to Image, Rotate Canvas, and then I could choose how many degrees I want to rotate it by. I'm going to choose 90 degrees counterclockwise. There we go. And now the next thing I want to do before I crop it is I want to adjust the colors a little bit. I don't want to crop it first because I need to adjust it with the darkest darks and the lightest lights in there. That's going to make this a lot easier for us. And right now the darkest darks are part of this asphalt that I'm going to crop out eventually. So to do that, I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and then Levels. You could actually skip a step just by going to Auto Levels, but I think it's good to know that levels are here. And you can, of course, choose Auto Levels here, which is what I'm ultimately going to do. But if you want to be a little bit more finicky, you can use these sliders to adjust the brightest whites, the darkest darks, and the midtones. And you could easily get it to exactly what you want it to be. But I find that auto does a great quick job to get the colors to be really true to life. And that's really my goal. I want these colors to be true to life, to look a lot like the painting it does in my home, or as I did outside. Then hit OK. Those colors are adjusted. Next, I can get rid of the outside borders here. So the first thing I want to do that is I want to crop to the outermost corners. So I'm going to select my crop tool here from my toolbar. It's the 5th tool down. And I'm going to click and drag. And newer versions of Photoshop do this in a slightly different way. You'll kind of drag the crop bar in from the side, but whatever version of Photoshop is that you have, you want to basically get your crop just to the outermost edges as you can. And you can see there's still going to be some black parts left that I'll have to still deal with afterwards using a separate tool. Once you've selected the outermost edges, just hit Enter or Return. There you go, that cropped out the extra bits. The next step is to get rid of these black parts, and I'm going to use the Transform tool to do that. So I need to select my image. Newer versions of Photoshop, you might not have to do that, but I'm going to select the entire image, go to Select up here at the top, then select All. The command key for this is Control A, or if you're using a Mac, that's Command A. Good to know those tools. There we go. As you can see, it has a dotted line all the way around the image. So that means it's selected. Looks like dancing ants. Now I'm going to activate the Transform tool, and that's under Edit, Transform, and you have all kinds of different types of transformations that you can do. I'm going to pick Skew. Warp might also be useful, but for me, I'm mostly will use Skew for most of this. Try out Warp too on your own and just see what it does. Okay, so we got Skew, and I know that's working because the little boxes appeared in the corners and in the middle of each side. So that tells me I can now skew this, Skew Transform. So I'm going to grab this corner here, and I can just click and drag it, and it stretches it out that direction. And I can click and drag this corner and stretch it that direction. I can do the same with the top and the bottom. You can only really do one corner or one side at a time. I recommend not doing both at the same time because it tends to jump around like this. So yeah, probably don't want to do that. Anyway, so one side, one direction at a time, and just get rid of all that excess stuff you have there now. And that's it. I'm going to hit Enter now, or Return if you're using a Mac. There we go. And it's now been pulled out to the edges. And this is starting to look a lot like my painting should. There's one last problem, and that is that the proportions are off. The painting is kind of stretched out a little bit. I think my painting isn't quite this wide in person. I know this painting is 27 by 36 inches. That's about a 3 by 4 inch ratio. So I want to readjust the ratio in Photoshop so it's the same as the one in real life. So to do that, I go to Image and Image Size. And you can see right now the ratio here is 31 and some decimal points, and 41 and some decimal points. We also have a resolution here, and that's referring to the image quality in Photoshop. 72 is what's typically used for web purposes. 300 is typically used for print purposes, but this image is pretty large, 31 by 41 inches. You can see this is a nearly 20 megabyte image. That's pretty large. If I wanted to print this out, it's going to print out just fine, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I'm going to readjust those proportions. So this is more like 3 by 4, or let's say 30 by 40, because I want to not lose the image quality. So if I were to just go and put in 30, it changed the other one automatically, right? If I put in 40, it changed the other one automatically too. I don't want to constrain those proportions. I want to change each proportion independently. So down here it says Constrain Proportions, a little box, and I'm going to uncheck that. Now when I put in my proportions, it doesn't adjust the other one. I'm going to do 30 by 40 inches, and I'm just going to leave that as 72 inches, 72 ppi, pixels per inch. I'm going to hit OK. Made a subtle adjustment. You can see the difference here. Not a big difference. I actually guess I took a decent photograph as far as shooting it straight on. You might notice a much greater difference when you do yours. So that's it. My image is now what I want it to be. All I have to do now is save it. So I'm going to go to File and Save As. I'm going to save it as a new file. I'm going to give it a name. Let's just say I'm going to call it Painting Ronnie Feldman. And I usually save two versions of my photos, of my projects. I save both a Photoshop version, which is going to be very a large file size. It's something that's still easily editable. If I built layers into this for some reason, I could still adjust those layers. And I also usually save a smaller JPEG version. So let's do that Photoshop version first. So PSD right up here at the top. There we go, so that's saved. And now I usually save a smaller JPEG version. So I'll go into Image, Image Size. And these are great for posting to the web or emailing or, they have all kinds of purposes. They're just quick and easy to send out, easy for people to open. So as you can see now, I adjusted the size, but it didn't adjust the other one. But I want those proportions constrained now. So let's make the height on this, let's make it 15. That makes the width about 11 inches, keeping the resolution small with 72. I hit OK. You can see it's made the image smaller. If I were to zoom in a whole lot, you'd probably see that it's more pixelated, right? Much more pixelated than there. Okay, I'm going to save this also. I'm going to go to File, Save As. I don't need to change the name, but I'm going to change the file type to a JPEG this time, which is a much smaller, more compressed file type. I'm going to hit Save. And usually it's going to give you some kind of an option box, and you could choose the image quality or the output quality. And I find for a JPEG, I want to keep this, kind of in the small size. So I'm going to look for something around like 200 to 500 kilobytes, right? So that's like half a megabyte or less. So, you can also choose quality by number. So 8 or 9 or 10 should probably be sufficient. Then I just hit OK. That's it. You've got 2 images saved now. You should be able to see it here in this folder. There they are, Painting Ronnie Feldman and Painting Ronnie Feldman is a Photoshop document. So that's it. That should get you your images that you need that you could send out for your classes, post on your website, email people, send out portfolios, or whatever it is you got to do. All right, thank you so much for watching.